The latest Chinese folklore horror game has arrived. Your grandmother, who was supposed to pass away peacefully, comes back to life during her funeral in a rural village. You're dragged into the underworld, trapped between the realms of life and death. A terrifying secret reflecting harsh realities is about to be unveiled. Welcome, viewers, to this funeral. But make sure to smile, for this is a happy funeral. The game begins with our perspective at the funeral scene. A little girl named Nanan is brought by her parents to their rural hometown to attend her grandmother's funeral. Almost the entire village is present, busy with preparations. Nanan looks at her grandmother's funeral portrait, then glances at the white rabbit candy in her hand, lost in thought. Curious, Nanan tries to place her candy among the offerings on the altar. Just then, a wrinkled hand clutching a cane appears before her eyes. A fleeting but familiar figure passes by. Nanan recognizes it as her grandmother. As a child, Nanan doesn't perceive anything strange about this and happily follows the figure into a small house. But her grandmother vanishes, leaving her trapped inside. The game's perspective splits into two sections. The upper part shows the room Nanan is in, while the lower part displays the controls tutorial. Nanan becomes curious about the room's contents. Dragging a small stool, she explores places she couldn't reach otherwise, such as a cabinet filled with trophies. The walls are adorned with certificates of achievement. By rearranging the certificates to match the corresponding items in the cabinet, Nanan finds a folded paper figure. On a nearby piano stand, a blood-stained sheet of music lies open. By observing the piano's glossy surface, which reflects numbers etched on the trophies, Nanan plays a familiar tune, the lullaby her mother always sang to her. Half of the sheet music falls away, revealing a folded paper figure of a married couple. Placing this paper family on a painting of three figures, Nanan notices an old photo frame on the wall above her. It displays a family photo featuring a young girl with twin ponytails. Judging by the photo's age, it might be from her grandmother's childhood. Removing the photo reveals a hidden compartment in the floor. If the upper room was a heartwarming space, the area beneath the floorboards is a terrifying banquet, where a table is surrounded by eerie paper figures. They appear to be attending a wedding feast. On the table are several sketch-like drawings. Using charcoal, Nanan outlines the animals depicted in the sketches, which transform into origami animals she can collect. Nearby, there's a partially assembled paper figure. Placing its missing parts into a coffin-shaped box, Nanan completes two paper brides. One bride is devoured piece by piece, while the other, intact, is needed for the wedding. Giving this intact bride to the groom summons a spectral bride, who clutches a photo frame. Nanan realizes the old photo she found earlier fits perfectly. However, the image in the frame soon changes. The little girl has grown up and married a man whose face is blacked out, her expression now blank and lifeless. Could these scenes depict her grandmother's past? It turns out that Nanan's grandmother was forced into marriage against her will. Returning to the cozy room from earlier, Nanan notices a birthday photo of a happy family of three, taken on the day of her birthday party. A large cake stands out. The cake looks plain and requires decorations. By solving puzzles outside the room's window, Nanan obtains birthday candles. She also places a family photo into a mailbox, which grants her a birthday card. On the back of the card is a minigame where a rabbit must avoid traps and pull a carrot back to its home, rewarding her with a toy rabbit family. Decorating the cake with these items brings back memories of Nanan's happiest birthday. In those moments, the world revolved around her, and she was the happiest child in the world. But in her grandmother's memories, things were completely different. In the dim, old house, candles were lit in the gloom. Shadow puppets on the wall revealed her grandfather's treatment of her grandmother. Domestic violence was a norm. Opening the wooden window, Nanan finds that moonlight reveals the combination for the lock on a cabinet, hiding her grandfather's stash of alcohol. Most of the time, her grandfather, often drunk, was angry. The candlelight also exposes hidden imagery on the walls, leading Nanon to find a partially burned letter by the stove. The walls are adorned with auspicious and ominous paper charms, which, when pieced together on an apple-shaped tangram, unlock a new offering for the altar. As time rapidly passes, the altar opens a hidden compartment containing a thick red candle, reminding Nanon of her grandmother's frequent prayers and offerings to the gods. Suddenly, the entire room begins to change. The walls turned blood red, and countless pairs of eyes from inside and outside the room stared at Nanon. Terrified, she covered her face with her hands. When she opened her eyes again, she found herself back in the warm room. Several pages were missing from the calendar. On the desk was a retro-style gift box, but the birthday present inside had vanished. A torn page from the calendar lay on the bed. Once placed back into the calendar, time shifted, and the environment changed. It felt as though many years had passed. The flowers had withered. During that era, human trafficking was rampant and had become a serious social issue. A stack of missing person posters appeared near the desk, but the photos on them were missing. Returning to the collage on the wall, Nanon matched various heads and bodies together, piecing them into the image of her grandmother as a child. That's when it became clear. The missing person was indeed her grandmother. On the mirror of the vanity, the reflection of a woman sobbing into her hands appeared. The missing person posters had transformed into piles of train tickets, hinting at how her grandmother's parents had traveled far and wide in search of their lost daughter. Her grandmother's mother spent her days at home wiping her tears with a handkerchief, so much so that the accumulated tears were enough to water a plant, bringing a withered flower back to life. Among them was a flower folded from a page of the calendar. When placed back into the calendar, time advanced once more. The clock on the vanity was missing its hour hand. The photos on the wall had changed entirely. Pieces of the next calendar page were scattered around, and after piecing them together on a missing person poster, the completed shape formed the number 4, an unlucky number in Chinese, as it sounds like the word for death. They turned to a doll and enlisted a fortune teller to summon spirits into it for guidance. The sand tray's final drawing revealed the image of a sinking stone, an ominous sign that there would be no news of their daughter. Nanon found the missing hour hand and placed it back on the clock, adjusting it to move time forward. Her grandmother's parents could do nothing but place a talisman in front of their daughter's photo, praying day and night for her safety. Nanon moved into the next segment of time. Next to the vanity were crayons, 3 of which had lost their original colors. By using previously found items, the colors were restored. These crayons could then fill in the missing parts of her grandmother's memories, bringing them to life. This led to a stuffed rabbit toy, the same birthday gift that had gone missing earlier. Unfortunately, it would never return to its rightful owner. Her grandmother's parents waited in vain, passing away without ever seeing their daughter again. Returning to the calendar, Nanon rewound it to the beginning and placed the gift meant for her grandmother back into the box. Now, Nanon wanted to uncover what happened to her grandmother after she went missing. In the somber world that followed, even daytime seemed dim and colorless. On the heated brick bed, a paper cut depicting a setting sun was found. In the painting at the center of the room, a woman cradled a large peach, sewn together with stitches, symbolizing a mother who had just given birth and was already pregnant again. Climbing onto a table, Nanon placed the paper cut onto the sole translucent wooden window. Time fast-forwarded like a slideshow. Her grandmother's living quarters had changed slightly, with pieces of broken stools scattered everywhere. Nanon collected and reassembled them to climb and explore, discovering new details in the paintings on the wall. A frayed old rope on the heated brick bed seemed out of place. It looked like something used for tying people up. Combined with the double happiness characters nearby, it became clear that her grandmother's wedding was essentially a kidnapping. Inside the wardrobe was a small box with a pig-shaped lock. Nanon discovered another paper cut, and the time shifted to nighttime. Her grandmother's home turned eerie, with a statue of Guan Yin holding something unrecognizable. Nanon recalled her father mentioning that her grandmother had to take regular medicine for an illness. This medicine, called golden pig pills, was not medicine at all. Instead, it symbolized a rural belief that consuming them would ensure fertility, likening women to pigs bred for reproduction. Coupled with the painting of the woman holding a peach again, it became clear that her grandmother was forced to bear children repeatedly. After being kidnapped, she had been turned into nothing more than a birthing machine. The heated brick bed's bedsheet was easily torn open, revealing a mother pig lying underneath. Gathering weights from the room, Nanon adjusted the time back to sunset and arranged the required items to measure the different weights of golden pigs, unlocking the box. Inside was a key with no immediate use. Following a recipe written in red ink, she mixed ingredients to create the golden pig pills and fed them to the mother pig, which then produced a golden pig, a highly valued symbol of continuing the family line in rural traditions. Placing the golden pig in Guanyin's hands caused the statue to shatter, and the moon behind it turned pitch black, expanding to swallow the sky. Taking the black image from the moon, Nanan placed it on the wooden window, bringing her to the darkest time in her grandmother's life. The room was in complete disarray. Nanan found a locked box. Using the earlier key, she opened it to reveal a sharp pair of scissors. She adjusted the time back to sunrise and used the scissors to cut open the painting of the woman holding the stitched peach. Inside was a nesting doll wrapped in a placenta. Opening each layer revealed dolls that resembled her father and uncles, but the smallest female doll was shattered into pieces. Nanan noticed a hole under the bed. Crawling into it felt like entering the interior of a living body. Her surroundings were sticky, and the rhythmic sound of a heartbeat echoed around her. It was as if she had entered her grandmother's body. Finally, she emerged into a warm, cozy room. In the room, a small rabbit family of 3 lived together. The baby rabbit had a fever, the father rabbit was telling stories, and the mother rabbit was cooking. Using a stethoscope to diagnose the baby, Nanan learned that the baby didn't want to take medicine because it was bitter, preferring sweet pumpkin porridge instead. She found a diary and took a watering can made of stickers and a sun hat made of straw. Following the father rabbit's story, she gave the sun hat to the father rabbit, who was sowing seeds, handed the watering can to the mother rabbit to irrigate the soil, and helped the baby rabbit carry a bountiful pumpkin home while avoiding the big bad wolf. She placed the pumpkin in a pot to cook, and soon the sweet pumpkin porridge was ready. After feeding it to the baby rabbit and offering candied fruit to help swallow the bitter medicine, Nanan played a lullaby to soothe the baby to sleep. Nanan thought to herself, if her grandmother hadn't been abducted as a child, she might have grown up in a warm family like this. But reality was cruel. After bidding farewell to the baby rabbit, Nanan found herself witnessing her grandmother's final struggles before death. Old, sick, and suffering, her grandmother endured even more pain from her superstitious husband. He mixed the ashes of burned talismans into water, believing it to be a miracle cure. Nanan, worried that the mixture might harm her grandmother, carefully removed the talisman fragments one by one. She picked up a porcelain jar from the stove and followed a red thread in the laundry basin to find a needle and thread. Using it, she repaired a torn rabbit doll from the bed. Based on the patterns on the rabbit, she placed corresponding items on the table and recreated the sequence of sewing the doll. This produced a familiar lullaby, the same tune her parents used to comfort her, their warmest memory together. Nanan remembered that after her grandmother became paralyzed, she spent her days lying in bed. To make the bitter medicine more bearable, Nanan gave her grandmother a white rabbit milk candy, promising to bring more next time if she liked it. That small act brought a ray of sunshine to her grandmother's heart. But the next time turned out to be at her grandmother's funeral. In her innocence, young Nanan didn't realize her grandmother was in the coffin. She thought her grandmother didn't want to see her because she had brought things her grandmother didn't like. Nanan lit a brazier and burned away all the painful memories of her grandmother. When everything false and painful was reduced to ash, the coffin lid opened, revealing the familiar figure of her grandmother. Overjoyed, Nanan exclaimed that she had finally found her. She placed the candy in her grandmother's hand, believing her to be asleep, and thought that when her grandmother woke up, there would be sweet candy for her to enjoy. Gradually, everything returned to normal. Inside the brazier, Nanan found a piece of paper that hadn't burned completely. Written on it were the words, "I want to go home." The happy funeral for her grandmother continued. During the burial, Nanan told her father, "Grandma doesn't want to be buried in the ground. She wants to go home." But her father responded with a strange smile, saying, "This is her home. She'll be here with our ancestors, never leaving." Hearing this, Nanan, who knew this wasn't her grandmother's real home, broke into tears. The game ends here. It is a Chinese grotesque-style satire game reflecting the societal issues of child and woman trafficking in old Chinese society and the resulting family tragedies. Some women's experiences were even more horrifying than those of Nanan's grandmother. What's truly chilling is that such incidents were still happening just over a decade ago. Creating videos isn't easy. Subscribing to my channel is my greatest motivation.